Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the group therapy for customer marketers. We will get started in just a second while I'm admitting all the rest of you in. But so excited to have you here. We took the summer off, and we are back with a very important topic of the challenges and opportunities with leveraging partnerships in the world of customer marketing and customer references. And I have a rock star lineup with me today. So excited to have Meaghan and Tiffany and Channing. They'll go through and give a quick introduction of themselves in a moment. But what I would like to do really quick is just realize I wasn't sharing my screen. So there we go. There. So there is the lineup. You can see us all in the video there, obviously, as well. And with that, I wanted to start off with, thanking Meaghan, Tiffany, and Channing for joining us. And if you could start with your a little bit of about yourself, your introduction, and we will go from there. We'll start with Meaghan.
Hey everyone, thanks Dana, and hey everyone, I see some friendly faces on the call today, so very excited to see some of you all again. I'm Meg Sullivan, or Meaghan Sullivan, call me whatever you'd like. I am on the customer programs team at Google Cloud, and really what our team does is work with our customers and our internal stakeholders to help to tell the stories of how our customers are solving for their customer or end users' biggest challenges. So I'm excited to talk today about some of those internal challenges that some of us may have working with our key internal stakeholders. I'll pass it over to Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Nguyen, and I manage customer advocacy for Mavenlink. I manage an employee and an advocate hub in Influitive and do everything from recruiting new advocates, prospecting for case studies, references, clients, product reviews, and a lot of everything else in between that a lot of us customer community and advocacy people manage. And Mavenlink, we are the industry cloud for professional services. We enable predictable outcomes, limitless scale, and the workforce of the future. And I'll turn that over to Channing now for her to introduce herself.
Perfect, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Channing and I am on the customer marketing team over at Okta. Okta is a SaaS-based identity provider. So basically we make sure that everyone logging into their applications internally and externally is who they say they are and can do it quickly and securely. So like I said, I'm on the customer marketing team here at Okta, but I actually began in a sales capacity and moved over to the customer marketing team about 1.5 years ago, which was great and something we always kind of like to call out because it was a great transition already knowing the product and our customer stories. So it's what made me interested in customer marketing. And I manage all of our reference calls. I manage our Influitive hub, our online customer community, which we call the Ozone, as well as onboarding new advocates into our program.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. So with that being said, learning a little bit more about yourselves and your programs, would love to hear kind of a little bit, diving a little bit deeper on what's in it for your customers. What do your customers get out of being a part of your advocacy program, being a part of your reference program? How is that set up for them? Before we kind of dive into that partnership aspect, I want to learn a little bit more of the value your customers are getting so we can kind of circle that back to translating into how it's valuable with the partnerships. I'll let whoever wants to go. Meaghan, you can go first with that one.
Sure. All that I understand is that our customers, the value that our customers get out of participating in customer marketing or customer reference programs, that you can kind of be bucketed into two pillars. There really is the tangible value and then the intangible value. And it's up to us to be able to communicate that both those buckets of value to our customers to really help them to get excited about participating. I think some of the tangible value is we're helping to connect them with their peers. We hope that we're helping to help them to build up themselves or their organizations as thought leaders and first movers in the industry and in the marketplace. And we also hope that we can help our customers and their teams to attract top IT talent by showcasing your organization as a thought leader and a first mover. It's really showcasing your organization as an exciting place to work. And we hope to be able to bring that value back to our customers and be really a partner and an advocate of their organization, not just our own products and services. And then there are some of those intangible things that you can't quite put a dollar amount to or physical value to, but really just building relationships between our organization and our customers can help them be more a part of the success that they see through our partnership. By enabling our customers to share their stories and get more involved with our internal teams, maybe they're having an impact on our product roadmap. Maybe they're getting first dibs on beta programs. By inducting these customers into our reference and advocacy programs, they're really becoming a part of our organization team. I like to think that our customers and our advocates that are a part of the program are a part of the Google Cloud team and vice versa. It's a two-way street and I'm a part of their team. So that intangible relationship that you build with those customers can, we think, benefit them in the long term, outside of all of the case studies and maybe press releases and speaking opportunities that really push the agenda and the possible marketing objective of the organization that you're working with.
You froze for a second. You're back.
Yeah, I'm having some internet issues. Please apologies. But yeah, those are some of the tangible and intangibles that we hope that we can communicate to our customers and that they do realize.
I love that. I love that two-way, that they're part of your team, a part of our team. That's one of our big philosophies at Slap 5 as well. And with our customer programs, that two-way exchange of value. As long as we're getting value and they're getting value, it becomes that partnership.
Yeah. We often really want to ask our customers. Oh, sorry. Am I still frozen?
You're good
back.
now.
Oh, so sorry. I was just going to add, we're often asking things of our customers, right? But we want to ask them questions too. What do you want to get out of it? Tell me what you want to get out of it. Is it to attract top IT talent? Is it to be a thought leader? And how can I then make sure that I'm checking off those buckets when interacting with you? So kind of making sure that they are communicating to us what they want to get out of it as well.
Echoing, yeah, what Meaghan said perfectly. Same. It's the good, the bad, the ugly, right? So when I do case studies, I try to get into not just the pretty stuff, but everything else, right? That troubles, problems, right? They help us with the roadmap. Organic feedback is the best, right? Getting it straight from the horse's mouth. Excuse the expression, but that's really the truth, right? They tell us what they like, what they don't like, and that helps make our product better, right? It helps the product team in being forward thinking and doing it before the actual flood comes. So planning and being able to have a good product direction is really important. And we are just as invested, I feel, as our customers are in making them successful, right? When they're successful, we feel like we're successful, right? And we're listening to their feedback and trying to be better. And I think that's really important. And then, of course, opportunities to speak. Obviously, everything is about mind share, right? Your brand. The more you get your brand out there, the more people are going to remember that brand and building the relationship, right? So it's a long-term partnership and not just, one quick sale like back in the days when people used to sell encyclopedias or what have you. And it's past 30 days, you can't return it. Now it's more about the long-term relationship that you have year over year, and it's not just like a one-time type of thing. As we know, relationships are really important before pre-sales, during the sales process and post-sales.
Yeah, I just want to echo a lot of what Tiffany and Meaghan said. I like the describing it as a tangible and intangible. Something I know that I always like to position when we're pitching our advocacy program to customers is to make sure that we tailor it to their needs and their wants. So if it's somebody that we know really wants to grow their personal brand, we make sure their face is front and center, make sure that they're getting the recognition that they deserve, growing their own brand, as well as maybe it's a smaller customer that wants their name out there and wants to partner with bigger customers. So we put their logo on our website to make sure that it's something they can point to. And when it comes to our customer journeys, we always really want to make sure that we're telling our customer story and then just explaining how we can help enable them to make that job done. So we want to make sure that we're telling their story and just kind of describing how we fit into it. So that way we're all getting a big win out of it. And it's not just us bragging about customers using our product. It's really getting to showcase all the awesome things they do. And then on the more tangible side, something that we do that I think is really cool is something called a business value assessment. And so we'll do this with any customer that does a customer journey, and we will actually go in and we have a whole, we call it a BVA. We have a whole BVA team internally who can go in and quantify the amount of hours, time, money that was saved by their Okta deployment. So that's really cool on a lot of levels, something we get to show off on our website by saying, look at all these metrics that we can point to. Then also they can turn around and go to their executives or their C-level or their board members or whoever they want to report to and say, this purchase actually saved us XYZ. So that's a really big mutually beneficial thing that we offer. And I think that gets a lot of customers on board and gets a lot of people excited about it.
Sorry, I was stuck on mute. That's great. And it seems like you all have little bits and pieces of, yes, making sure what's in it for the customers, what's in it for them, but having those unique kind of spins to it, which is awesome. And what we'd love to kind of pivot to with knowing and understanding that landscape would be, how are you collaborating with other teams? I mean, customer marketers are either one person shop, which I know Tiffany, you are, teams that are growing. Meaghan, I know for 2 years, your team has grown where you're at. Channing, you're on a larger size of a team, but it ranges in responsibility, but it's owning and doing a lot of the customer facing stuff that will help tie cross sells, upsells, renewals, and customer marketing is really becoming a forefront, a really important role within organizations. So how are you taking advantage of collaborating with other teams and making sure that they're making the most use out of partnering with you, the content you deliver, the processes you have in place? Talk a little bit about that, the good and the bad of that. Tiffany, you want to go first?
Jenny? Sure. So, I mean, for me, it's a lot of times just having the personal meetings with everybody, like for CS, if I'm trying to get more information about a client. So I call it success story prospecting, which I do. I prospect. I'm always kind of a salesperson. My background is account management, so I know it's like to be on the forefront of the client if they're not happy about something and so forth, and something is happening. But overall, clients really want to help you. I think even if something, you do an update and something breaks, right? It's a long-term relationship. Like today, your iPhone, is stuck, you turn it off, you don't throw it away, right? You use it, it gets fixed. And people generally want to do, it's just, competing priorities, right? So I meet with the CS, I talk to them about, these 3 clients that I think might be good for a story. I try to get more information from them, trying to make it as easy as possible, just I can draft up the email, they can use some of it, tweak it to their liking, send it to the client, and then I can take it off their plate, and then when I get to the point where the client is open to it, I just pretty much dummy proof everything, excuse the term, but, or the expression, just bulletize everything, make everything their time zone. So it makes it easier for them to want to work with you. So just, this is London time zone, pick a date and time that you can get on the call. And then we record everything. You don't have to do any pre-prep for the case study. We just talk through the interview guide. And once you get the conversation going, people want to talk about it. There's times where people think, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just, write down the answers. And it's like brain surgery going through the interview guide, right? Trying to answer questions because you don't remember 3 years ago what happened. But when you talk about it, people start remembering things and they like to talk about what they did and how they helped their firm go from here to here. So just make it easy, just collaborate, take the time to have those personal meetings with the CS or executive or whoever it is that you're trying to get buy-in from, and make it as easy as possible for them not to say no. So I think that's really key because people are very busy and everybody has competing priorities and objectives and targets and deadlines they want to hit. And we work with a lot of professional services agency organizations. So every month, their month end, like this week is basically crunch time. It's month end, it's quarter end for a lot of people. So they just don't have the bandwidth to get on a call, right, to help you with your targets or what it is that you're trying to get done.
Yeah, I think to echo, it's really interesting that all three of us have sales background and account management background. Before I transitioned into customer marketing, I was an inside salesperson. And I think that when we're thinking about sales, right, sales are not only one of our most important internal stakeholders, whether it's customer success or the sales account management teams, but I often think about all of our internal stakeholders as my customers, right? So product marketing, industry marketing, field marketing, as well as sales, the sales organization, all of these internal stakeholders are my customers that I need to sell them on how important the customer marketing, customer reference programs are, and how important it is to follow processes so that the customers can have a best-in-class experience working with our teams, telling our stories, participating in our events, doing content with us. I feel I'm recalling that the meme or the gif of the iceberg, on top of the iceberg you see everything's perfect, and then underwater that's all this madness. And essentially, we want the customer to see the calm waters above the water and have a great experience with us. And there's all this madness happening underneath the water. Maybe it's like the duck with the feet turning really fast, whichever metaphor or analogy you'd like to use. And really, what our goal is to make it the least amount of chaos beneath the water. And Dana mentioned that, we've grown our program here over the past 2 years at Google Cloud. And what we try to work more and more towards is process. I've got two colleagues, Lori Timms and Margie on the call, who can, a past colleague and a current colleague who can attest how important internal stakeholder processes are. And I think that then relays to a best-in-class experience with the customer. That's, the customer, having engaged customers having a good experience translates into advocacy and more participation in marketing activities and sales references. So I think, we start with our internal stakeholders and being successful with them. And I think then success and good experience with the customers will then follow. I think that's one big thing is, we know we're going to do our job and do it right with that customer, right? We're going to do our best to share their story and get them involved in the highest impact storytelling opportunities. But if we don't have our ducks in a row internally, we may have, there could be some challenges, and we want to avoid those, right? So that the customer continue to be happy and see the calm waters above ground.
Yeah, and just to echo off of that, we obviously work with product, with customer success, with customer first to figure out who our best and most successful customers are, because those are the stories we want to be telling and the customers we want to be meeting. But echoing the whole concept of the field being incredibly important, something that I have really started to focus on is with our enablement team, is to make sure that I'm getting in front of the field as much as possible. So obviously, like Dana mentioned, we have a little bit bigger of a customer marketing team than some of the other folks. So we're pretty lucky in that we can kind of divide and conquer. We do have people on the team that manage certain relationships or are much more plugged into the AR team, the IR team, or with the CSM team. So the field, I really work closely with the enablement team just to get in front of the field as much as possible, because that way we're keeping customer marketing top of mind. We're reminding them how our process works and how to fit into that process, and to make sure that they continue to work within that process instead of trying to go outside the lines and end up with, like Meaghan said, that mess underneath where we don't really know how many times the customer has been contacted, or if they've been doing advocacy we don't know about with reference calls and all of that. So the more and more we get in front of the field, the better that arm just kind of works. So I think that that's been a really big success for me personally, is working with the enablement team. And I join monthly or quarterly calls when possible, just always reminding the team about, especially I did a big push of enablement when we first got SLAP 5. And that was a great kind of rebrand of how we approached enablement with the field with SLAP 5. And another way I've been really collaborating with other teams, because now that we have the SLAP 5 prompts, I've been collaborating with product to help make prompt questions, and then the field to help find those people, to identify those customers, to send them out. So it's such a big team effort. And I find that the more and more I'm on enablement calls, the smoother all of the other collaborating goes.
That's awesome. And you said you do those calls like monthly, or how often do you get yourself in front of these?
It just depends on the
team?
cadence of, because each sales team or CSM team has their own cadence. So it's kind of hard to track down which calls to get on. So I definitely, whenever there's something new, we try to get on once a quarter, depending on the team. And then also on all of the new onboarding calls. So whenever we have new batch of field members, getting on those onboarding calls, which we used to do once a month, but we're actually internally, the enablement team was changing that cadence. But getting on those new calls are really important because it gives them a person to go contact when they have a question, and hopefully keeps it top of mind, and hopefully they know from the beginning how to work with our team.
It's awesome. And I think that's even from the last maybe year, 2 year, that customer marketing, when you have new hire onboards, that was never a part of the lineup. It was always either going to learn about HR, you're going to learn about what sales does, maybe a sales engineer, and product. And product would cover all of marketing. You never really learned about, at least in my experience, with customers I work at and companies I've worked at, you never really learned about the customer marketing aspect or case studies or references until you were in whatever role you were in and how you dotted line were connected to it. So I think that's really huge. That's a great thing that you guys are doing. And I think that more companies, the more they're able to do that, and that comes from the higher ups, from the top down, of getting that leadership buy-in to make sure that it's front and center, and every employee is well versed in what customer marketing can do for them in their role, no matter what position they're in, finance or marketing or sales. So I like that. We will continue on, and then, as I mentioned, we'll, in about 10-15 minutes, we'll have you can come off of mute, ask live questions, or ask some questions into the chat. But a couple more meaty questions that we wanted to cover. One, I know that Meaghan's really excited about, the executive buy-in, and then the other about challenges. So we kind of were just, I might flip it here, because we were talking a little bit about collaborating and working with the other teams. Would love to hear kind of the challenge aspects. So what you are doing is working great, but what challenges have you faced? Like where have you seen the biggest pushback, and what have you done to overcome that in regards to working with other teams or dealing with partnerships? What are some of those, in the Halloween theme, some of those scary stories that you've had, and how you avoid those happening again?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think some of the biggest challenges that we often have, it's a good thing and a bad thing, or a blessing and a curse. I think there is so much demand for telling customer stories, and new products developing, and new people onboarding, that very often, I think all of us here probably experience the bandwidth issue, right? We're only so big, whether you're on a large team or a one-person team like Tiffany, there's going to be bandwidth issues no matter what, because there's never enough capacity to give, a one-to-one experience with every single customer, or one-to-one experience with every single product team or industry team, right? We're all stretched a little bit thin, and that's why, tools and scalable tools and products that you can onboard to your team are really, really impactful. But also, to the challenges I think we hit when it comes to bandwidth is some of the the shadow referencing, or people maybe internal stakeholders not understanding, not knowing, or not following those processes, and possibly not 100% respecting the boundaries that are set to ensure the customer is having the best possible experience. And I think that what you can do, one of two things, right? You can say, darn, that team doesn't follow process and I don't want to work with them. Or you can kind of embrace the challenge, I think, which is something we all often do, and say, okay, this isn't working with my internal stakeholders. How can I figure out, what's working, what's not working, and how can we continue to evolve our processes so that we can, empower our internal stakeholders to, collaborate better so that the end result is a good experience for the customer, is a story well told, is a product launch successfully kicked off, and is an event successfully filled with amazing speakers. So I think it's really just understanding, if you're seeing red flags and you're seeing maybe processes not being followed or bad customer experiences happening, try to do a debrief on those red flags and challenges. Try to understand what's working and what's not, and how you can empower your internal stakeholders to be better partners to your team. And then that will in change make you a better partner to your internal stakeholders and your customer. So I think it's just making sure that you're keeping an eye out for those things, but also educating the internal teams about, hey, this is what could happen if we don't follow process, or if the customer has a bad experience. I think very often we're so close to the customer, so we see what happens when things are good, and we also see what happens when things are bad. So how can we, without being too scary, and we're not, but really trying to help people understand, hey, this is what happens. This is the negative impact of when we don't follow a process, or when we provide a bad experience to the customer when they're collaborating with us on co-marketing. And hey, let's all learn from this together. No, we know we're not pointing fingers, we're not blaming each other, but let's all learn together about how we can, make the next experience even better, learn from it, and build upon our team. Because I think we're all gonna work to the point of, we didn't even know about co-marketing and onboarding last year, right? This is new to a lot of people. All of our teams are growing, right? A lot of us are in fields that are just continuously growing. So how can we ensure that people are empowered to be good partners to our team? I think that's how we can be the best partners to our internal stakeholders, but also our customers.
Definitely echoing what a lot of what Meaghan already said. So we've kind of add processes around the reference process now, where there's a Salesforce object to make sure that we don't have, customer reference fatigue, right? And to be able to just collaborate. And there's no perfect one way. Sometimes it'll happen where, again, specifically this customer fits the 3 requirements that the prospect wants to talk to, right? About their deal or what have you. So it's just communicating, working together, keeping the open flow of communications. We have a Slack channel, sales Slack channel, and social selling and so forth, where we Slack everybody in that channel, and to ask hey, XYZ is looking for a person that meets these things, right? And if someone can identify there is a client, then I try to work with the CS person or the product person to get information to see if we can reach out to them and so forth. And I'm usually mainly used for emergency references now. Before, I used to do it from A to Z the first few years, but now I do it last minute, day of the month. We can't get someone for this call, then I can usually text the client and they'll usually respond. They might not be an advocate in the community, but they will definitely help when they can outside of the community, even if they're not engaged in Influitive or in my hub. So, and getting buy-in, like Meaghan said, everybody has competing priorities. Us, our internal stakeholders, the clients, it's month end, they're trying to close business as well, just as we are. They're trying to bring in, last minute deals and stuff. So be empathetic, be understanding, be kind to their schedule, kind of know what's happening. And that's just through talking and having the relationships, right? Does this work? If it doesn't, I completely understand. We can ask someone else or try to find someone else. And a lot of times they might have a 10 or 15-minute little gap in their day or what have you, where they can jump on a call. So, just communicating, collaborating. There's no one perfect solution. There are going to be times where things kind of fall through the cracks. It's just the nature of the business, right? And we're moving 1,000 miles, and most are all in tech. So it's moving really quickly. We're trying to get things done. And just work together and ask the questions.
Yeah, I think echoing a lot of what Tiffany and Meaghan just said, a lot of the biggest issues I come up against personally does come from reference calls and unrealistic expectations with references. So sometimes that means a sales rep needs our best customer on the phone tomorrow, and they waited to the last minute to ask for this request, and they're all of a sudden it's you have 30 minutes to get this done, and it's just rather impossible, as we all know, to get customers to just drop everything for you. We're not even their main job. So I think level setting expectations is something that is really important. And circling back to enablement, another reason why I find it so important to get on as many calls as possible with the field. Because if we level set expectations as much as possible, hopefully it mitigates those last minute requests. And obviously some of those are just impossible to avoid, where a customer really will just say that if you don't get a reference call in the next week with blah, 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 so-and-so customer, they are going to look elsewhere. So some things are out of our control, but I think level setting and pushing back with the field is really, really important here. And it's not always easy to do. And I find that we have set a policy and a standard that sales deals have to be at a certain stage and have to expect X amount of time for the reference to be fulfilled, and make sure that that branding and that language is as many places as possible. So hopefully people will realize that this is not something that happens overnight, and that we can hopefully mitigate that damage, but sometimes that's just impossible to avoid. And I know that that can leave unhappy sales reps, but the more and more that we just communicate to them that we're doing our best and hopefully working with as many customers as possible will help with that. Another thing that relates to unrealistic expectations for references is sometimes you'll come up against a rep or a CSM who needs a customer that has this exact integration with this exact many users and this exact industry and this exact product suite, and it's just not possible to track down. We don't necessarily have the reporting, or the one customer we know that has that exact use case has been in the middle of the sales cycle. So I just think that what I've learned makes the most sense is adding this rep into all of my communication. So whether it's product, whether it's the rest of my team, whether it is CCing them on every single email, so they understand that you are going above and beyond to find that reference, and sometimes they just don't exist. So that's something that I find really does help to just communicate and show that we don't have this perfect catalog of customers we can just turn to and wave a magic wand. So they see how the process actually works and understand, and hopefully help more down the line.
Yeah, that's so true, Channing. I think expectation setting is so important. I think it's like a lost art that probably all of us here on this call are, just it should be the top thing on your resume, is being able to try to communicate expectations and understanding the importance of managing those expectations with the customer, right? Not just those that are participating in reference calls, but also, not every single customer can get, can participate in a shiny brand film, and not every single customer that purchases your product can do a case study. But then also obviously internally, right? Managing, it's so tough because we want to say yes. I feel like that's we're yes people, right? We're doers, we're producers. I think that probably a lot of us on this call can make magic happen because of the great relationships that you've built with your internal and customer teams, but you can't, pull a rabbit out of the hat every single time. So I think it's trying to set those expectations from the start to the best of our abilities with the customer, like, hey, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do, and try to manage those expectations with our internal teams too, right? Like, hey, this is the bandwidth that I have. These are the resources that I have. These are the tools and alternatives if I can't meet your needs. So trying to communicate those expectations internally can help save us some headaches in the future, possibly. But then, very often, maybe it's still not understood, but at least you did everything you could, right? Channing, to your point of like copying on every single email, like, hey, this is what it takes, and we still couldn't do it. So how can we work together to find alternatives, kind of thing?
I love that. Expectation setting should be the headline of every customer marketer, customer reference professionals, LinkedIn, everything. In that bit of sales, and you all come from that sales background, as you talked about. You're selling yourself internally with these processes and putting those expectations in place, but then you're also selling yourself to build that close relationship with the customer. So it all ties in together. And you touched upon this a little bit. I think each of you, we've talked a little bit about the internal buy-in and kind of just touching a bit about what does that executive buy-in at your organization look like in regards to your programs and processes, and is there ever too much executive buy-in? Is there ever not enough? And what can happen with that aspect of this whole partnership? Because it really, I mean, you wouldn't have customer marketing if it wasn't a strategic initiative or a strategic goal from the executive team. But just having the department and having the team isn't going to make you successful. So what kind of buy-in do they have with the partnership with you? Whoever wants to take it first.
I can start. I think kind of like you just said, Dana, we obviously all have to have a little bit of executive buy-in to all be on this call, which I think we're really lucky at Okta and have fantastic executive buy-in. So I'm really not sure how this job would even be possible without a kind of a top-down customer first approach. And so I think that that is really key. Just something that really, really helps our whole team is that we do have our executives kind of constantly talking about how important it is to reference sell and to make customer stories like such a priority at every point in the sales process, at every point in the customer lifecycle. So that really does make our job a lot easier. So I think that's something that's really key, that if you do have to lean in on as much as possible. I know sometimes even as simple as just having one of our executives send the email to the executive of the other company that we want to maybe do a customer success story or to do a reference call, and just using those relationships. Maybe they don't even have a prior relationship, but they have that same title. That really helps. And I know that that goes a really long way. So we're lucky enough to have that, and we definitely lean in and use that as much as possible. So like reaching out to our executives when we know there is a relationship, or even if there isn't, and having them be the one to reach out just goes so long, instead of just channing.thompson@okta.com, who they have never heard of, asking for them to do a reference call or hop on a longer customer video. So that's really key. And I'm back to internal buy-in, something that we just hired a couple new executives, and we've had them hop on our GTM all hands, marketing all hands, and kind of discuss how important they want that our customer stories really are, and how our customers telling our stories is so important. Definitely goes a long way with our sales team and reinforces to them how important it is to collaborate with our team. So that's something that we definitely rely on and are really lucky to have.
I just wanted to echo exactly what Channing said. We have huge executive buy-in here as well. On the macro level, they all believe in it. And obviously reviews, G2, grids, being on the forefront, being mentioned a lot in certain spaces like PSA and PM, et cetera, is really, really important. It's just the micro pieces, right? Having the executive buy-in and then trying to trickle that down into, we're thinking more about objectives and OKRs and so forth, right? With the CS team, where obviously if they're dealing with clients on a daily, weekly basis, right, they should have pretty decent pulse on how happy the client is. I mean, the client can have some problems, but they love us. So sentiment and how engaged they're on the platform are kind of two different things. Someone can be in the platform all the time and absolutely hate us because they came from a competitor shop and they're like, we hate this system. Can we use something else? But then other people might be using it less, but they find more value in it, or they like the UI better, their experience is better. So it's just kind of integrating all that into the various departments like product, PS is really important. But overall, yeah, everybody believes that, customer marketing, advocacy, CAB, all that is really important to growing and making a better product, right? And hearing the good, the bad, the ugly, and getting it straight from the horse's mouth from the clients on where we should go. This is what we like. This is what we don't like. And even the clients that love us. And we like that because we want their organic feedback so we can make a better product for people that want to use it. So that's what I have to add.
Yeah, I think to pile on and add to, I think I can agree with all of those sentiments, but also I think where we are in our organization, customers and customer storytelling is, part of our go-to-market strategy. It's all the way from top down, the importance of knowing the user, respecting the user, and allowing the user to tell our stories for us. We all probably follow a bunch of each other on LinkedIn, and we're always seeing really great, lessons learned on our feeds. And one thing that I learned from probably some of us on this call today is, when we market or when we say it, it's just marketing. But when our customers say it, it's social proof. And I think that that's something that at the top, our CEOs, our CXOs at Google Cloud truly believe. And I think that they rely on our teams and the team and our auxiliary teams to help support us, that, the best way to sell our products and services are through our customers' words, whether that's internally on a peer-to-peer call or through all of our marketing activities. You know, we don't have a single marketing activity that I can think of that where our team is not involved in some capacity. We just had our annual event, and even in the kickoff keynote, there was so much, you know, the backbone of the keynote itself was customers, and that was so exciting to see. So I think you can see the executive buy-in and how there's so much importance, you know, factored into how can our customers can just say it better than we can. And I think that that's understood throughout the organization. And then I think that how can we just empower everyone to kind of lead with that message? I think that's how you can see, you know, your customers then respecting your marketing more and respecting your products and services more, but then also wanting to be a part of that fun, right? And then that hopefully helps our teams get more and more advocates.
We just had a follow-up question. Thank you, Meaghan and Channing and Tiffany. A follow-up question. It may or may not apply to, I'm not sure if you didn't have it already. How did you build your executive level involvement? Or kind of on a flip side, how did you sustain it? If anyone had an answer to that.
I think so. I've had different experiences. So where on the team I'm on now, the team already existed when I joined, right? So it was all about sustaining that executive buy-in. And I think you do that through, you know, showing the results of your, you know, pipeline impacted by sales calls and campaigns. You do that through the data very often, right? So it's really important to be able to have the data to back up what you're doing. And we always could have better data and better processes to be able to report on that. But tying your, you know, customer campaigns back to pipeline, tying your peer-to-peer calls back to closed won deals, you're really able to just remind your executive internal stakeholders that, hey, we're tying this directly to dollar bills, and everyone speaks that language, right? But then also, if you're able to demonstrate the relationships that are strengthened by co-marketing, and this is kind of ties back to those intangibles that I talked about earlier, I think it's just continuing to build out those proof points that, you know, that your customer marketing, customer reference team is a trusted advisor of those executives that you need buy-in. If you can prove that out, you can continue to sustain that. So I think twofold, right? Tie it back to money, tie it back to data in the best that you can, but also showcase the impact that your teams can have on relationship building, how you can support, you know, an account executive to improve their relationship with a customer that can, you know, turn them into an annual subscriber to a 10-year commit, something like that, right? And kind of have your internal stakeholders back you up in that, right? We all build really good relationships with these teams, you know, when, you know, call on them to support you when you need to continue to prove out, you know, why you might need that extra budget for the next quarter, or why you need more headcount, because there's so much demand on our teams. And then I think in other roles I've had, I've built a program from scratch, from zero, right? And in those cases, it's all about the data. Do the research that, you know, Slap 5 puts out and other organizations put out to showcase, you know, this is the impact of word of mouth marketing. And this is, you know, this is how we can translate and tie back to pipeline, to speeding up the sales cycle. The research is out there and it's amazing. And I think that's where you start. If you get hired to build a sales reference program, they already know they need you for some reason, but they probably don't know why and how and what you can do. So I think trying to remind people of the, you know, numeric and financial impact, and then begin to deliver on that. I think that you build it from scratch, but it's definitely an uphill battle. So, you know, which could be exciting but challenging to be a part of.
Echoing exactly what Meaghan said nicely. Yeah, a lot of it is just sales enablement, right? Tying it back to how it affects sales and numbers and pipeline, right? And prospects and leads. So like I just did an interview and we had a competitor and I was able to dig in a little bit more on why we beat out the competitor, right? Why they went with us. And he was very forthcoming and open to sharing that. And I put it in the sales Slack channel. I was like, yeah, if you guys need any information on XYZ company, the competitor, I was able to ask this, advocate more detailed information on why we won the business over the competitor, and just helping the sales team, last minute references, calls. And that's something that I ask all the time. Like, would you be open to doing other types of partnerships with us, like events, podcasts, webinars, speaking at a conference or a trade show, right? Or being an emergency reference. And a lot of times, like, yeah, just, let me know and so forth. You can add them to a list and kind of keep like a list or a tracker or a database of people that are open to partnering up with you on a webinar, podcast, pre-recorded virtual event, a fireside chat, and tying it back to sales enablements and numbers, right? Because it's all about sales at the end of the day. We all are here to close business and grow.
And with that, kind of building off of your strong relationships that you're all building, another question we had come in: do you find that strong relationships at senior manager or director level can be successfully leveraged to get access to an executive level for success stories speaking? Have you seen success with that across the board? I see some nods from Meaghan and Channing. Overall, someone admitting into the room now. So
is the question, sorry, Dana.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Tiffany.
So is the question like, does the title matter to getting people to do speaking engagements
essentially
and so forth?
Well, using your relationships with your managers or directors to get access to those executive levels to actually get the story from them. Have you seen success with that?
I think a lot of it is just relationships, right? If you have the relationship, whether you're a manager, an associate, or what have you, and you have that relationship or connection to be able to just ask. I think if people are just open to it, right? If there's something positive they can share or whatever it is that you're going after. So having it, like being more senior obviously would help, but I don't think it's a barrier to entry, right? To getting what you need if you're not an executive, C-level director or what have you. Is that the question, kind of, Dana?
No, I think it's the other way around. And Bonnie, I don't know if you want to
clarify.
Come off of clarify or come off of mute.
Yeah, what
there
I meant
is
thank you so much. So yeah, so I was beginning to see sort of a pattern that, like, we all want to try to get immediate and direct access to the E-suite, right? But sometimes we can't. But I've seen increasingly over the years that if we actually build really strong, this is just in my experience, so I want verification here that this is somebody else's experience. If we build really strong relationships at that sort of senior manager, director level, are other people experiencing that we're able to leverage that relationship to say, hey, could you get your SVP to actually do this case study with us? I know the story is really coming from you, but could you get them to come so we could shoot them on the video and do, like, so is anybody else sort of experiencing that?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think it's case by case, but I think that one, very often it could be easier for those people to start collaborating with those people on co-marketing activities like case studies and whatnot. Maybe it's easier to start to get approval for those more technical stories where you're not yet addressing business impact, those things that kind of have higher visibility from executives, to get your foot in the door, right? And you want to continue to nurture those advocates. But to your point, Bonnie, you might be able to say, hey, we'd love to get an executive point of view in this case study. Or maybe once you start marketing with this director or manager, you then get connected to their comms organization. And then you have your BFF at that organization, right? Because that person might help get you connected to the executive for an executive type of co-marketing activity. Or you can actually find out from that comms person that's in charge of approving not just the director, but also the executives, storylines. What are those marketing objectives that you have? You want thought leadership? We want to do that with your executive. You want to do stories more geared towards developers? Let's work with the director or maybe the manager on that. So you can begin to kind of plot out a more comprehensive, deeper co-marketing relationship, and maybe use that relationship that you built with the lower level person, not that they're not equally as important and can also tell amazing stories, but you could use it to kind of propel yourself to the next step and just get deeper, right? We all want to get deeper in these customer accounts, because like for a sales reference call, you might need a business person, you might need an IT person, right? So the more people you know within the account, the better. So I think I experience very similar stuff, Bonnie. I feel like that's a good thing to keep our eyes open for.
Thanks.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also was just going to echo as far as different people in the organization with different capabilities or understanding of the product. I find that those lower level relationships, again, sorry for the term lower level, but those lower level relationships can be super beneficial for more technical references and more technical journeys. So we have some customers where we'll have an architect or enterprise architect, something at the account, do a very technical speaking session at Octane, where they're going into the weeds of how exactly Octane is our customer conference, of exactly how they're using our product and the exact integrations and how they got it set up and how they had it rolled out. And then we'll have those higher level, executive level people, maybe at the keynote, or maybe doing different acts of advocacy where they talk to the business level of it and why it appealed to them. And I definitely think that those relationships go hand in hand, and one usually leads to the other. So I definitely think that you don't necessarily have to start at the executive level to get the more technical relationship. It can be either way, and kind of just showcasing their talents when it comes to the product is really mutually beneficial and helps you earn the relationship that you don't already have.
While I have you there, Channing, this question I kind of want to direct to you that came in from Tim. As you know, many brand champions don't have the signature authority to complete high visibility acts of advocacy on behalf of the brand. What are the most utilized strategies to overcome this challenge? I feel like this is in the wheelhouse of Okta.
Yeah, definitely. So that's something we face all the time as customer marketers, right? Is working within the constraints of the account. Sometimes you'll have a customer who is super gung-ho on doing anything and everything, but their marketing and their legal constraints internally prevent them from doing so. So that's sometimes just something that you have to work around and can't necessarily always get the exact outcome you want. So I know that just kind of depends. What it is building relationships, and maybe you hop on the phone with their legal team, with their marketing team, getting to know them, figuring out what those exact constraints are and how you can work around them. And a lot of times that's really just like talking to as many people at that company as you can. And if they're willing and eager, they will definitely introduce you. But if you can't really figure out a way to work around that, I think sometimes we'll just have to do what we can with the constraints. So for example, sometimes we really have an amazing deal that we that just signed, and we want to mention in earnings, and this account says, no, you cannot talk about you can't say our name. We'll never do co-marketing branding or anything like that. So we'll do something as simple as just kind of saying a company of this size in this industry purchased Okta for these products. So just kind of like alluding to the account, or within the constraints, anything that we can kind of still share their story without sharing who they are is something that can still be super effective, because sometimes all you want to know is that a company that's similar to you, maybe its size, maybe its industry, is doing similar things. So working around that is always key.
I can echo to this too, because we have quite a few big brands that they won't do any written type of that puts their logo out there, like our website or a product review where it ties them back to their company, but they are willing to go on a reference call as long as it's not recorded. So that's big for us. We have a couple of big clients that are willing to go on reference calls, but they will not do any type of written case study or product review. And they've helped us close, quite a few deals because of the brand, and they're really big. You guys would all know them. So yeah, so there's ways around. If you can't do A, B, and C, what about X, Y, and Z? And a lot of the times there's different ways you can leverage these big brands that fits their legal guidelines or parameters, and having that relationship. Like we have the relationship with that lady that closed the deal, with the rep that closed the deal. So she's awesome. Like we can, like, great, you're going to do a reference call, that's worth a lot, right? More than money. So there's ways around it and different ways to leverage different clients depending on their legal and being empathetic to the constraints.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Channing. So happy to have the three of you join and happy to have our group therapy sessions back. We're probably hosting another one in December. We'll be polling if you are not a member of the CustomerX Slack group. Dropping a link right into the chat. Meant to do that earlier. Sorry about that. But we'll be doing a poll of some future topics. Probably will be stemmed off of topics that have a lot of buzz out of CustomerX Con next week. For those of you that are coming to see us in Boston, excited to meet you. For those of you that can join us virtually, we'll be excited to see you virtually and be able to wave to you there. And yeah, more to come with group therapy. CustomerX virtual meetups will be on the road next year. We've done Raleigh and Boston, but next year in the spring, we'll be back on the road to various cities throughout the country. So we'll be keeping these on monthly and then getting some in-person meetups as well happening. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tiffany, Channing, and Megan again. This was a great session, great therapy. Hope everyone took away some insights and realize that you're not alone. And we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.